Good morning, everybody. So today I want to talk a little bit about how I have been handling my miscarriage and a little bit of the processes that I'm doing as far as letting go. Because I'm an extremely spiritual and consciously aware energetically of what's going on, I thought about just letting the miscarriage go and not going to the ER at all. But I knew mentally and emotionally that if I didn't get that confirmation, that I would be trying to hold on to the energy of the child that was no longer there. And when you hold on to something like that, it affects everything. It affects your whole emotional body, and it seeps into the physical body and could then prevent our future chances of conceiving children. So that's a big part of the reason I went to the emergency room, was to have that confirmation, that peace of mind, if you will. And all day Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I canceled my appointments and I went off the grid for a few days so that I could come to terms with and handle what was going on in my mind. If I was one of my clients that came to me with this type of life event, how would I handle that? So I did a Q&A on myself, and so all of my clients out there, you never have to worry about if I am practicing what I preach, because I do it on myself regularly, for the bumps and the journey and the curveballs and the mountains that seem to pop up in life all the time. So part of what I do for the process of letting go of emotionally traumatic times, first of all, because I have an extremely logical mind and I have an extremely emotional mind. So as with most people, my logic brain argues with my emotional brain. So I had to first acknowledge logically that I was having an emotional struggle. I did not want to admit that I was attached to the pregnancy, that I was attached to and hopeful of what was about to become an infant. My logical mind was very much in the way of, this is a bundle of cells. It's not really a living being yet. It's just a bundle of cells in the body, and it never developed into a living, breathing creature. So that was a very powerful argument in my mind, because I am very logical. And I had to get the logical part of my brain to acknowledge that I was still struggling emotionally, because emotion is not logical. Emotion is emotion, and you don't always have control over how you feel about things, but you can control how fast you process the emotion. So once my logic brain said, okay, I'm struggling with this, then I was able to address the emotional side. And until that point, I was just like numb. It was just and meanwhile, the logical brain, oh, well, yeah, this makes total sense. This happens a lot for a lot of women, especially first pregnancy. So, yeah, it happens. That's cool. And then there's the emotional brain. I know it's going to be a baby. And I really wanted it. And so that conflict of emotion in my brain led to, so I think I'm hungry. Yeah, pizza sounds good. Did somebody say ice cream? And so that's kind of where my brain was for the first couple of days, until I could get my logical brain to acknowledge the emotional brain so they would stop conflicting, because that creates that limbo state. So once I came through that, I was then able to put together my process. You can call it a ceremony, you can call it a ritual, I call it a process. Everything in life is a process, whatever label you want to throw on it. And one of my favorite things as a letting go practice, which I do every time I become aware that I have an attachment or I'm working through something emotional, I like to write letters. I write it out. I describe in detail what is happening and in detail what I'm letting go of, what I'm giving back or what I'm taking back, and things of that nature. So I actually sat down and I wrote a letter to the lost potential baby about how I felt and what I wanted to do in order to allow that being to go and move on its journey. These things happen for so many reasons, and the logical, physical reason could be anything. They are assuming that it was just a genetic abnormality, which happens most frequently in early term miscarriages. But there's also still that spiritual aspect of what if there was something greater to that experience? What if there was a soul that needed to have the experience of not coming into life, of not being able to have that experience? And what am I holding on to that's going to prevent that soul from moving on? So even though I was not consciously aware of an attached soul to the body, it was good to write out all of the things that I was letting go for that child that was no more in this existence to be able to move on into a greater purpose, because that adds to the spiritual experience of the soul that had the experience of being lost in utero. So there's a whole process there that goes on behind the scenes that a lot of people don't think about, or that we get caught up in our own emotions and our own grief, that we try to hold on to them long after they're gone, which hinders the spiritual progress of any being at any stage of development. So I wrote a letter and I gave back, everything that it brought to me, and I just let it go with more love than it brought me. I wanted to make sure that there was that awareness for my emotional mind to connect with, that yes, it did happen, and yes, it is no longer, and that it was okay to move on and let it go. And so today I feel so much better. I did that on Sunday and Monday, and my husband is doing something very similar, and we're going to talk about it when he comes home. That also made it difficult, was that my husband was not there with me through the weekend. I only got to see him for a couple of hours on Sunday, and that makes it doubly difficult not to have your partner there. And I want to give a huge shout out to my friends who I got to do a margarita night with, and who I got to spend time with and hang out with, who are there supporting me emotionally whenever I need it. So thank you guys so much. That does mean a lot to me, because that's more than I've had in previous years of any form of support. So that was really awesome, and thank you. So now we get to focus on what to do now, what's next. And Scott and I both are very much of the opinion that we want to try as soon as we can. When I went to the ER, obviously they drew my blood, they took my urine and all of that stuff. When the levels came back, my HCG was only a couple hundred, and he used the word a couple hundred, so I'm guessing it wasn't much more than that. And I was grateful that they were so low already, because I'm really hoping and facilitating my body to let go of those hormones so that I will ovulate regularly. I know that it can take weeks or sometimes months for the body to hormonally go back to the way it was. And energetically, my body feels a loss. Like, I am aware that aura is no longer with me, but my energy has changed in a very interesting fundamental level. So that I think is really interesting to be able to feel now that I have my clarity of mind back. But what we do from here, I'm waiting for my HCG levels to finish dropping. I finally stopped bleeding, and that I think also helps, because when you're bleeding every day, it's a constant reminder of what you're going through, and it has to finish the process until you can really be done with it. So that was a huge help. So now, this afternoon, I took a pregnancy test. I am going to use an OPK to chart my ovulation again like I did with the first cycle. And when you're using an OPK, the HCG hormone will throw off the accuracy of the OPK. So I took a pregnancy test and there was still a line, there was still 2 lines there. So the hormone's not gone yet. I will wait 7 days and take another one, and hopefully that one will come back very negative, very clear negative, and then I'll be able to chart my ovulation. So I have here the ovulation predictor kit that I like to use. I just use the Walgreens brand because they tend to be cheaper, and I use the strips. So they come in the little bottle and they have the date on there. And they're just little strips that you can use. They're really easy for me to read. I used them the month before we started TTC, and then I used them the month of TTC, and I really like them. They're very easy to read, and I never had any issues with them. So I went back to the same brand again for this TTC. So yeah, I am not going to open these right now because in reality I won't use them for another week, and they say to discard after 30 days of opening. So, but I have that. I have a couple pregnancy tests. I'm going to make sure that my HCG keeps dropping, and here's hoping for the future. But I'm excited that I get to continue this journey, and hopefully the second time around we will also get pregnant quickly and be able to keep it, make sure that it sticks. And this time I also want to do the live pregnancy test so that you guys will be with me every step of the way. So I'm really excited. I'm excited for the future. I'm excited and hopeful. And thank you all so much for coming along with me. Please like and subscribe and share these videos, and I will talk to you all in a few more days. Peace.